What up? What up? It is Brian with the Trial and Error podcast. Fearless is going to be joining us a little bit later on today. He had some other things to take care of, so I'm flying solo for the first part of the show. Um, and if you just look in the comments, you're going to see a link to my school community. It's for people that want to learn marketing. And I've partnered with another marketing agency, and we are really tired of the way that people do marketing, the way that their retainers are and things along those lines. And so we decided to run a community to teach business owners how to do their own marketing. And it's the Foundry. So if you're interested, the link is actually below in the comments. Go ahead and give us a join. It's something that we've been working on for a while and something that we're in development of. I'm actually after this, I got a couple of errands I got to run. And I'm going to spin the block and get back to putting stuff in the Foundry and making it a more valuable community. Also, this is a link for the media room. That is going to be my content studio. Basically, I teach business owners how to record their own content, and they get to leave with their own piece of content. Right now, what I'm pushing is my Studio in a Box series, where I basically teach you how to build your own recording studio to get you up and running. And it's not as much getting the studio, it's getting the equipment and teaching you how to use it. Um, and so that's available too. Last week, actually, I was on site for a client and I did a full build out for an agency. Um, Really looks nice and everything. When I get done 100%, I got some cable management stuff that I need to get done. But I will post, some images so you guys could kind of see the kind of work I did. Uh, but really, it's me coming in, and you get to get the full use of my brain and what I know about setting up recording studios. And they could either be at home, you could have your like mobile kit where you can set up and pretty much record anywhere, coffee shops, wherever you want to go, or if you have a building or a spare room in your office that you want to turn into a content studio, I can come take a look at it and we can sit down and figure out what it would take to make that happen. So that's what I got going on. This week I wanted to kind of spin the block and go back to a conversation, Fearless, that I had. And we were talking about the 48 laws of power and kind of debunking some of the mythos in that book. And really the conclusion is, the destination we came to regarding the 48 laws of power is, um, it should not be your guide to navigating your daily life if you have not if you're not if you can't really apply it to your your daily life if you haven't achieved a level of status, or you're actually in a position of power and stuff. And even then, some of the stuff basically teaches you how to be a sociopath. And so the 48 laws of power, we're not saying it's a complete sham. I'm not saying anything along those lines, but the use of it is highly contextual. There's context where it makes sense to apply the stuff you read in that book. More times than not, there are better ways to handle it. And it comes down to the conversation between hard power and soft power. And so I wanted to do a conversation talking about different power systems that we're living in, and sit down and talk about how we in our society perceive power, and how it's actually being displayed. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. It's just something I had on my brain, and I wanted to get it out there. Okay, here's the thing. Most people believe that power is something that you can see and measure, and so they see power as money, status, dominance, visibility, right? Um, but reality, power is indirect and structural, and it's really sometimes really hard to identify. Um, I can't think of a better case than all the stuff surrounding what's going on. The revelations with the Epstein files. Because if you follow me on my other channel, I did an entire episode about me reading it with my journalism brain, with my journalism student brain, and kind of extrapolating some things from that. And it's really a display on how power actually moves in this society and in this country, and not just locally, not just in our country, but internationally too. Um, and the reason why I say that was Epstein was a very powerful man, and it wasn't because he had um, overwhelming military force. Even though he did have some people that did some do dirt dudes in the background. Um, it wasn't because he could physically uh, force or compel adults to do things. His power was executed over children and people that couldn't defend themselves otherwise. Um, but he had the power of knowledge and knowing where the bodies were buried and knowing exactly what he needed to do to get to compel people to give him what he wanted, which was he compiled all that blackmail material, and it was very targeted. He targeted heads of government, heads of in the law, in the legal field, corporate. He targeted people in high finance. He targeted people in tech um, because he knew that there was a lot of really kind of degenerate dudes hovering around in those orbits or whatnot, um, and that's what he leveraged. And so he was able to leverage favors out of these guys because he documented everything they did when they were in his presence, and he had relationships with a lot of intelligence agencies or whatnot. They viewed him as an asset. That's power, y'all. When you're powerful enough to call one of the investigative bodies who's actually investigating you and and using your power and influence to get the highest up people in that office to back off of your case or remove people who are too overzealous in pursuing your case, that's power, y'all. And it doesn't necessarily come from might or anything. It just comes from the fact that he knows things that people don't want disclosed, or he knew things that people didn't want disclosed. That was power, and he built an entire structure around that power. He had an entire network of people that were roped into all the trafficking and all the other stuff. That's real power. And it's an absolute terrifying use of that applied power. And the people that were supposed to be in charge to protect everybody were benefiting from the intelligence that he was gathering in a lot of cases. And they didn't do anything to protect the innocent people that were caught up in his net. And so when I talk about power in that aspect, Jeffrey Epstein was one of the most powerful men in the world for a long time. And it was all because he didn't have militaries, he didn't have private armies or anything, but he did have access to the people that did have all that stuff, and he had leverage over them. He held their careers in his hands essentially, and with one word or one email or one errant thoughts to the wrong person, he could destroy somebody's entire corporate structure, political life, everything. He could absolutely shred it. And they knew it. And so they gave him a wide berth and allowed him to do whatever the hell he wanted to. And it should scare everybody that this country was perfectly willing to feed children to monsters and the other countries that were involved. I know they said that to a degree, British intelligence, Israeli intelligence, Saudi Arabia, all these other countries had their hands in the Epstein pot and they all benefited from what he did. Russia benefited from it. All these countries did. It's really scary, the fact that, and I'm not naive to that. That was my old life. I worked in abuse neglect stuff. I know how some of these networks work on a local scale. But he had the power to make his on an international scale and run for a very long time. So reality power is mostly indirect. And what people, and it's not something that you can visibly see. It's not something you can tangibly measure all the time. Um, and so the core question is, what if the people who think they have power are actually the ones that are not the ones that are actually shaping outcomes, right? So if the people that you think are powerful aren't the ones that are actually shaping the outcomes, what does that look like? Okay. The thing we need to understand and wrap our minds around is visibility is not the same thing as power. Being highly visible doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means you're highly visible. And in an age where everything has a camera and every camera has an internet connection, pretty much everybody, if you got the right package of looks, you're talking about the right topics, you're on the right platform, anybody can get a degree of visibility. And so visibility creates the appearance of influence, but it doesn't guarantee control. And we could talk about the concept of influencers till we're blue in the face. But here's the reality. Influencers are people that have large social media followings, and they influence what people do, act, say, and buy, you know. Um, but understand that the influencers are still under the control of the brands who provide them money in exchange for influencing people to um, do business with these brands. Like there is a symbiotic relationship between influencers and brands, right? And influencers and corporate side in the corporate side of the country or the corporate side of the world. So we see that these influencers, people think the influencers are powerful. They think that they're celebrity. They think, because they see them all the time, that they are something more than just a pretty person who has a camera in front of them. And then when they find out that these influencers are just as messy and chaotic, and as anybody else that they know, you start to see, the cracks start to shape. I think a lot of it happened with that girl on The Bachelorette, right? Where they canceled her show because they found out that she had some domestic violence or whatnot. There's evidence of it. They knew she had domestic violence. Like, I don't know why, it was a big deal, but people saw the tape of the domestic violence that everybody already knew about. And ABC/Disney threw their hands up and said, hell no. We think that these influencers wield power, but really they are subservient to the whims of the corporations that put money in their pockets. They're subservient to the whims of the social media platforms that allow them to exist and maintain that visibility. Okay. More times than not, when you see like these people on YouTube or these streamers or whatnot, it's very targeted about what they're doing. They can only talk about certain things because it's this thing is in the news cycle, and so they have to talk about this specific thing in the news cycle in order to stay relevant. They have to play this specific game because this specific game is popular, right? They have to participate in this specific trend, or they have to react to this specific video, this meme or whatever that's circulating, because that's what's in the news cycle, and they're subservient to it. They're not creating, like, a lot of them come in with this concept of they're going to put their own vision of what they want to create out into the world, but instantly, as soon as they start making that money, they realize it's lucrative to talk about the things that everybody else is talking about, the things that are in the media cycle. And media cycle isn't just, evening news. It's entertainment. It's what items are popular from a commerce perspective and things along those lines. And so a lot of times the people that we see as powerful influencers that are controlling their own destiny, they're highly compensated employees of whatever brands they're tied to. So happened to Kanye's wealth, right? Like that deal with Adidas when he was dealing with when he's having his manic episode, and absolutely went off the deep end with some of that stuff. We found out that a lot of his business was really, he was just a highly, highly, highly compensated influencer, with the Yeezys and all the other stuff. Once they pulled all that stuff out from under him and pulled that entire ecosystem away from him, he's not broke by any stretch of the imagination, but it took away his billionaire status like that. And that's the game, you know. And for a lot of people, I know a lot of people in hip hop were talking about Kanye has the power and the juice and all this other stuff. That stuff is flimsy. The moment he got on there and offended and started running his mouth and basically offended a bunch of people that were putting money in his pockets, instantly that went away. And if your power is conditional, then it's not really power. If it's that level of conditional where all you have to do is piss off a couple of major people and instantly you are You go from a millionaire back to a billionaire down to millionaire, which is not a lot. It's not a little bit of money. I mean, I'm not going to front. People sit on here and talk like $1 million is just a little bit of money. It is not just a little bit of money for most people. Okay. Um, but the way that heard people talking about Ye before the entire meltdown and everything, there was this almost feeling that he was bulletproof and he could say and do pretty much anything. And for a certain segment of his fan base, he can. He can absolutely say or do anything. But those fans don't have any real power. The people that have the power are the people that could yank his Adidas contract and say, "Yep, yep, Yeezy brands, you don't exist anymore under Adidas, and you have to go find a new somebody else in the shoe game that's going to give you a deal." That wasn't power. He was just a highly paid influencer. Okay. And that goes back to the concept of visibility creates the appearance of influence, but it doesn't guarantee any control. A lot of these influencers, especially the kid influencers, which I really do feel sorry for, the kids whose parents started them out on the social media journey and kind of put them as the face of it. These kids didn't really have any power or direction, any way to direct what they do and what they don't participate in. They were just basically put into that role and put into this highly visible role and expected to sink or swim. They didn't really have any control over what they talked about. They didn't have any control over what they said or did online. That was all dictated by, one, their parents, and then two, whatever was in the media cycle. Whatever people were talking about on social media, that's where they had to be. So they had to react to new movies and play with for the kids that were playing with toys, they had to play with the hot toys that were coming out. They couldn't play with the stuff they liked. They had to play with the toys that were trending. Okay. And so it creates that appearance of influence. People who are highly visible often, excuse me, people who are highly visible are often the most exposed and easiest to target. And that's what happens. You see it, with these professional athletes where they get caught up into these sugar traps with, they're out there on the road looking for love in all the wrong places, more or less. And it's really easy for internet scammers to get access to these athletes and ring their pockets because they can capture, they can get them talking intimate or sharing intimate pictures. And the next thing you know, it's a blackmail ring. Hey, if you don't pay us this money, we're going to show all this stuff to the public and destroy your career. That visibility doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really give them power. Okay. And so celebrities, influencers, public figures, they may have your attention, but they don't necessarily control systems. They're just highly paid and highly compensated employees of the system. Talib Kweli said it, give me the fortune, keep the fame. Because a lot of the fame comes with other handcuffs and other shackles, especially in the influencer driven culture where you could see a live streamer treated like this high Hollywood celebrity and only the kids know who they are. The adults have no clue who they are, but they're out there standing next to the old school, like they're standing next to traditional like celebrities who've been in movies or released albums and music videos or model and stuff. Now we're starting to see the streamers pop up next to them, and they're influencers too. Okay, and none of them control their systems that they operate in. Because those systems that they operate in can tomorrow say, yeah, well, you ain't hot no more, so bye bye. That's what happened to a lot of these internet folks who came to being during memes, like who rose to national prominence because of the meme that they were in was really popular, are saying, yeah, people aren't laughing at the meme anymore, so now your career is over. Like that. And then they're back to being normal people who occasionally get recognized. It's the cycle that they used to put child stars through, where this kid is cute and popular and everybody loves this kid, until the kids, you know, their voice starts to get deeper and they start getting that acne and they start growing and they go through the awkward stage and everybody wants to drop them like a hot rock. Meanwhile, this kid is growing up and celebrity is the only thing that they've known. And now they're having to adjust to a world where people are calling them washed up at 13 years old. That's crazy. Okay. Um, and so true power often operates behind the scenes and does not require public recognition. In fact, true power doesn't really like public recognition because true power does things that that a lot of times the public will find abhorrent, whatever. Um, I still go back to the Epstein thing. That had to operate in the shadows, but it was also one of the worst kept secrets among the people who were participating in it. Okay. But yeah, true power doesn't like public recognition, doesn't require public recognition to work. It requires capital from the public, but more times than not, nobody wants to see how the sausage is being made. Okay. Um, the attention to explore is that most visible people are not the most powerful, and I think we have to really wrap our minds around that. There's always somebody behind the scenes controlling the strings. Back in the days, it was what the studio system, the movie studio system. They would have these high powered stars, and they were in all the movies and everything. But at the end of the day, the people that were really in charge were the producers, and the heads of these studios. It's kind of the same way now. You know, the heads of the studios are the ones that are the billionaires. More times than not, the stars, yeah, they're rich and famous, but their money ain't touching some of these Hollywood producers. If we look at it like this, how directors, how directors and screenwriters a lot of times, even if they've directed Oscar movies and won for best screenplay, this, that, and the third, they're having a hard time. Sometimes they still have hard time getting work, uh, because they have to sell their idea to somebody that has money and basically go around and fundraise for their own projects. Okay. Um, I know a while ago Spike Lee was doing crowdfunding to get his next movie made, and he always is it, his movies had always been in uh, awards discussions and things along those lines. He's having to beg, borrow, and steal. Very few of these directors, big name directors, have the juice to be able to just go and do whatever they want to do. They still have to be able to raise money to fund their own visions a lot of times, and they have to go talk to the guys that really have the power. And we never see who these producers are. I can count on one hand how many people, Hollywood producers I know by face. We don't know who they are, but they control what we see on the screen. And not just on the big screen, but on television too. There's a reason why people have been talking about how television has gotten dumber and started treating the audience like it's dumber because they found the easiest way to retain viewers, um, is to have shows that are super easy to digest, where they're not where conflicts don't carry from episode to episode. And if they do, they make it a special episode. Everything's self-contained. The expository language, where the main characters are going to exposition and they're sitting in there basically explaining the plot to you without showing it to you. These are all nuances that they've added in recently because that's how they think of the viewer nowadays. They don't think the viewer is sophisticated enough to be able to pick up on nuances and thematic elements and film language to convey a point. And a lot of times they're kind of right since a lot of comprehension levels are down across the board. But they have found what the most lucrative way to make movies and television shows are, and that's all they focus on. So you don't see any more cutting edge stuff, genre bending things, unless one of these people that has a lot of money truly believes in the project. Okay. Because they've determined what is lucrative and what makes money and what formulas sell. And they're never going to let go of it. That's what's happening. Music is a great example of that really formulaic kind of thinking where um where some label somewhere, some executive somewhere said, this is the thing that sells. And this thing that sells is the only thing that we want to sell until it don't sell no more. And so that's why you see one artist get white hot, and then there's 5 different clones of that same artist. And then as soon as the public is moved away from them, every single one of those artists get shuffled off. And we're just supposed to forget they existed. I did a show about this, talking about you know, the way the hip hop is kind of in this position where a lot of times the labels are the ones that are making these artificially making these artists lot careers shorter. You know, it used to be, I worked in radio, so it used to be the cycle was record label will call us and say, hey, we got new artists, we're trying to get some spins, we'll send you the wax. All right, cool. Give them some spins, give them the feedback of what we thought about the artist or whatnot, and they say cool. All right, and then they take that white label and make it a lead single, and then the single finally gets released to the public after they've tested it in our market. The single kind of gets released to the public, and then the public goes nuts with it. And so we had a couple of albums like that from some pretty big artists where we would get the single almost a year before the single was actually officially released on the major record label, because they were testing it. They're trying to test it out. And it used to be that, a single on a record would have a lifespan of over a year, you know, and then the next single would drop, or 6 months to a year. It was a longer gap. There's a longer gap between when somebody drops something and when we expected to hear it, when we expected to be done with it. And so, an artist could drop, if they're dropping a new single with a video and everything every 6 months, they were really super active. And records were like, they're, we're in the spotlight for 2 to 3 years before we started expecting a new record from somebody. That used to be the cycle. Now these artists got 6 months. You got 6 months, and they don't even really care about the follow-up single. You just got 6 months to do whatever you're going to do, and make things happen. You can't build an audience in 6 months. You can't build people that want to, just the way the music is released and the way it hits, it's going to, especially in hip hop, it's going to hit the urban markets first, it's going to hit the hood first, and then kind of spread out to the suburbs. And that's a longer tail. But by the time these artists have kind of gotten their fan base together and the people that will pay for tickets to watch them in a show, it's too late now. The label or whoever's trying to shuffle them off for the next artist that's coming along. And so these artists have cycles of a couple of months to try to build steam with a career. It's crazy. And the people that are making the decision is not the artist. That's the artist is not making the decision. A couple of artists have peeped the game and realized the real juice is controlling your social media platform, and being the one that releases your own music and everything. But that's a harder path because you're not getting that outside money. You're not getting that investment from billionaires who are the heads of these, who are basically the heads of these studios or whatnot, because they don't really have power, y'all, is what I'm saying. And so they are just victims, or they're employees of this system that they don't have any control over. Everybody knows who they are, but when they disappear, everybody's like, well, what happened to them? Well, the labels, the people that were really in charge said that they ain't popping no more and they got to go away. That's the game. Same thing with celebrities. Shoot, reality celebrities, celebrity chefs, all of these people are caught up in the system where they're made into celebrities because somebody saw some value that they can extract from them. And as soon as they feel like all that value has been extracted from them, they toss them away and expect them to go away. The people that make that decision are the ones that are in charge, not the celebrities, not the visible face that you see. So let's talk about hard power versus soft power. Okay. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one. Hard power is the ability to directly control outcomes through force, authority, or resources. Okay. That means law enforcement, military force, economic control. You can force people to comply through physical force or economic brute force. Okay. Soft power is the ability to shape behavior, perception, and decisions without direct force. Okay. This includes culture, influence, persuasion, and narrative control. Okay. So we talk about hard power versus soft power. Military might is hard power. Okay. I would posit and say that the concept of um, making laws, I would almost say that is a version of soft power that translates to hard power, because this administration is showing us that they don't really care about what the law is. They don't agree with the law, they ain't going to comply with it. And nobody's going to make them do it. The courts don't have the ability to force them to do anything. And so I'd almost say now the concept of laws, depending on who you are in society and what you got going on and what influence you have, laws are almost soft power now. They're almost suggestions, because they obviously don't apply to specific people within the society. They apply to me, they apply to you, they apply to y'all, they apply to me. They don't apply if you got enough juice and money, and enough people who matter. If you got all them people in your corner, that don't matter either. Okay. And so I would push back against the concept that specifically laws are hard power nowadays. We're kind of starting to see their soft power. They have the hard power when somebody who has hard power can enforce them. But if you're a hard power entity, you are an elected official with enough juice, the law is just a suggestion to you. And I think we're starting to kind of wrap our minds around that. It's crazy that a law can be something that could put me in jail for a long time. And for this other person, just because they're sitting in a specific seat, they do it. It's not a big deal. They might not even see trial. They may not even be convicted of something they're caught on tape doing. So hard power forces compliance, and soft power kind of creates alignment with people. And in this world, we've kind of had a combination of hard and soft power. The illest thing is when hard power pretends like it's soft power, where hard power is actually forcing you into a position, but they make it seem like you agreed to the whole thing. They make it seem like you had consent. I look at the way excuse me. I look at the way the military recruits kids, right? Because we view military might as hard power. What's going on, Fearless?
What's going on, champ?
Nothing much. Talking about power and hard power versus.
I saw that, man. That was some good stuff. I loved it. Yeah.
But I'm a little bit off my notes here, but one of the illest things is when excuse me, when hard power can essentially pretend to be soft power, right? Where it's literally forcing somebody into excuse me, y'all. Got something caught in my throat. Hold on one second. Fearless. So basically, it's when hard power can pretend like it's like hard power can force you into doing something, but pretend like you agreed to it. When it manufactures consent, right? Like the example I used was growing up, the military recruiter, right? They'd all be all up in our school. And they would be targeting a very specific demographic of kids up there, right? When I was in school, when I was in high school and everything, it was kind of known I was kind of I was in that college bound track, right? But the way that the recruiter stepped to us at that school was, well, I mean, college might not work out, and you won't have anything to do, man. You want to stay out of jail, you want to stay out of trouble, you can join the military, man, and you get you a car, you get some housing, you get a career. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, and a lot of people who didn't have that, who had concerns about what they were going to do in the future, that was kind of like, okay, well, it's going to give me a career ladder. I'm coming from, people would be coming from a place where they didn't necessarily have other people that had that level of stability, or adults that had that level of stability in their world or their life and didn't have careers. Well, shoot, the military steps in and says, hey, we can provide you a standard of living. All you got to do is just sign right here. And then instantly you sign instantly you agree to sign right there. Instantly you're under the hard power. Because they can compel you to do anything. They can ship you anywhere in the world. They can give you assignments to harm people. They can do all kinds of other stuff. And you have no choice but to go along with it.
I mean, well, see, that's just it, though. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, well, see, that's just it, though. You do have a choice. You don't have to obey. And that's one of the things that I totally understand. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. About a day or so ago, when we were talking about the Epstein files, right? Mm-hmm. And our whole thing back and forth was I was telling her, like, even if they did unredact the Epstein files and put it out, nobody's gonna do anything about it. Like, right. You're not gonna do anything. So whether they put it out or not, what's gonna change? Like, you'll know the names, but you know the names now. And what are you doing now? And she's like, they can't do anything. I'm like, no, we can't do something. We're choosing not to do anything about it. So we can do something. We choose not to. There's a difference. And she's like, well, the powers that be, for the most part, aren't going to let people, whether it's the government, whether it's these bureaucratic individuals, whether it's the red tape type people that are making it where if you do speak out about this, if you're right about any of this stuff, they're going to make sure they shut you up 100%. I'm like, okay. But the one thing that I totally understood was that in a revolution, there are going to be sacrifices that have to be made. See, Malcolm understood that. Martin understood that. Meckers understood that. Hell, man, I call it the 4 or 5 M's of people. Mm-hmm. Muhammad understood that. They all understood that in order for us to move forward, some of us, matter of fact, during Martin Luther King's speech, didn't he say something along the lines of, I may not get there with you? Like, he understood that he was almost out of here. He understood that. So there's a sacrifice that has to unfortunately be made. A majority of us are scared to make that sacrifice. And because we're scared to make that sacrifice, because we know that our government will do all kind of heinous shit to you, nobody wants to rock that boat. And here, let me go ahead and tell you, me neither. Yeah. So, don't think that I'm just sitting here talking because I can, which is my right to do so, which it is. But I understand, just like y'all understand, that nobody's going to do anything about it. So we can keep talking about the Epstein files all you like. They could come out with the unredacted file tomorrow and you ain't going to do shit.
Well,
that's a fact.
And I look at it, I kind of liken it to this. Like, enough raindrops will erode a boulder, right?
Yep.
But are you going to sign up to be that first raindrop that gets splatted across that boulder?
That's all it is.
And so
that's all it is.
But specifically with the Epstein thing, I kind of see both sides, because here's what I'll say. The hard power is the hard, like when the person in charge, like when we're looking at the separation of government, like separation of the governmental powers, right? That's eroded right before our eyes, right? Because now the judiciary has no check and balance control over the executive, and neither does the legislative. So neither what used to be co-equal branches of the government, they have no power, because the power that they actually had was soft power to influence, not hard power to compel or coerce.
And we didn't know that until it got tested.
Yeah.
We didn't know that until it got tested.
And the executive power does wield that, then they wield it like a hammer. And so the executive branch can literally say, yeah, okay, we unredacted it and whatnot. You ain't going to investigate this no more.
No, that's what happened. You're done.
That's what happened. And this goes back to the show I did talking about this. That's what happened originally in Florida with Acosta. He was the AG, if I'm not mistaken, of Florida. And the call came down from on high, because there was one prosecutor that was really invested in getting the names published and all that other stuff. And the call came down from on high and said, remove her from the case. And they're saying that there's emails, and I haven't seen these emails, so I can't verify the veracity. I haven't seen them yet. I'm still going through a lot of parts of it. But there are emails that basically said Epstein was the one who basically said, this person is really on my case. We need to do something about that. And then the call comes down from on high and pulls them off of that case in Florida. And Acosta gives a sweetheart deal to him, which essentially is 13 months work release. And he can't be further prosecuted. The hard power basically stepped in and said, nah. And the reason why is because not only was he a central figure to U.S. intelligence, he's a central figure to Russian intelligence, he's a central figure to Israeli intelligence, he's a central figure to the British intelligence agencies, Saudi Arabia intelligence agencies. He was the cog, he was the key in all of these wheels. And so the call came down from up on high when that original Florida case came down. That's why he got that sweetheart deal. And they tried to close it. When Pam Bondi took over as AG, she had the power to rescind that deal because new information came out. And she refused.
Of course. Well, why was she?
And next thing you know, now she's the Attorney General of the United States of America. So
that part. So play ball and play ball and you straight. And if you don't, then they'll remove you.
Right.
I mean, but that's my point though. At the end of the day, this is people doing this to other people. The government is not some other entity outside of us. What? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well, now it is though, and that's the problem.
No, it's still not. AI may be outside of us at this present moment, but the government itself is still made up of people. It's people. If it was like some type of alien, alien UFO type thing or whatever like that, I would understand. But this is Homo sapiens, people pissing shit just like everybody else, making decisions for everybody else. So you got about what, 400 or 500 people making decisions for millions of others, and then we sit there and we act like there's nothing we can do about it. Fuck yes, there is something you can do about it. But the problem is, we're not going to do anything.
Well, and
we're not going to.
The way I phrase, and this is how I kind of peep it, I look at like the ruling with Citizens United, right? Where they basically said that corporations are people too, and money is free speech. Okay, that's the Supreme Court ruling.
Okay.
That was the Supreme Court.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
And essentially, what that opened the door for was corporations can dump unlimited amounts of money into candidates quietly, and that money buys TV time. It buys campaign stops. It provides staff. It provides internet resources to boost campaigns and stuff like that. Like that money provides all of that infrastructure. So yes, occasionally you might have somebody break through who isn't connected to one of these corporate interests, but more times than not, they have a very difficult time out competing this person that has unlimited money funneling into them. That's why JD Vance, I'll go into it. JD Vance, before he was kind of a political outsider, right? But
Mhm.
he met somebody very important when he is in college. His name was Peter Thiel.
Mm.
Peter Thiel is the founder, well, not the founder, but he was the former owner
PayPal
of
Mafia.
PayPal Mafia, and Palantir. He's the owner of Palantir now, and Palantir is the single largest intelligence gathering entity in history, right?
Known. I would say known.
And it can
Known
aggregate.
history.
Well, the reason why it is where it's at right now, because they took a lot of PayPal's predictive models, because PayPal got really good at predictive models, discover fraud and whatnot, and they applied it to people. And so a lot of law enforcement agencies around the country for years have been using Palantir to basically determine who's going to be a criminal and who's not going to be a criminal, where the criminal activity is going to happen.
All right, right. And where is it going to happen, and what are we going to ignore?
Yeah, and so
because it's funny to me how we get very cherry pickish when it comes to certain crimes that we're going to make sure that we investigate versus crimes that happen every day that nobody says anything about. That if an ordinary everyday person were to commit do that same thing, that can get you 20 years to life.
Yeah.
Whereas other people can do the same exact thing and nobody even look in that direction.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with whose pockets are being affected by that specific crime. And so Palantir, Palantir has basically unlimited access to pretty much anything everybody does, right? Mm-hmm. And now since Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle, who's had government contracts forever, and he's the database king of the world, where all the data about everybody, like hospital records, school records, all that stuff is on Oracle built systems. And then you have Palantir, who is an amazing aggregator of that information. It can sift through that information. That's what their systems do as a predictive model. You have a machine that can really determine the entire outcome of the planet. But what I'm saying is this: with JD Vance and Peter Thiel and everything, people don't know about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, his dad was German. They grew up. His dad was a German expat who ended up having to leave Germany after the war because Nazism was illegal, and so they landed in like this outpost or camp in South Africa for former Nazis, where they could be Nazis openly and not face any legal repercussions. So that's where Peter Thiel comes from. He's the one that dumped all this money into JD Vance. He's the one that gave him the money to start to really start campaigning and stuff like that. He's the one that handpicked the vice president of the United States, essentially. And the citizens didn't have enough. Like, basically what happened is the corporation said, here are your choices that you get to vote for.
Correct.
And they basically predetermined the choices that you're going to pick through. And so that's why I'm saying, until we have enough, until people actually start pushing back against the concept that corporations just would be able to just dump unlimited amounts of money into politics, I don't necessarily think we have much of a choice. I think we can prop up grassroots candidates and hopefully it balances out. But the other side is you never know what grassroots candidate's been compromised.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not saying it's not about us rising up and everything. I'm saying that they put the system in place so that they're going to be, their power is preserved regardless. And it's figuring out how to get around it. I think,
right.
And I think that's kind of, and a lot of times we like to believe we're in control of this stuff.
And that's
gives us
my
comfort,
point, though, bro, is that we're not
yeah.
in control of any of any of this stuff. And that's kind of and here's the thing. My buddy Matt, sorry about that, I have to clean my glasses. My buddy Matt and I were discussing this. Mm-hmm. And I want you guys to understand something. Like, we're doing this to ourselves. Mm-hmm. This isn't some type of alien invasion or anything like that. Like, we are so bored as human beings that we pick fights with other people. We
I'm gonna take this real quick.
Go ahead, do you. We exert our dominance on other people. We exert violence. Well, I think I already said that. But I think that for the most part, a lot of it is just the attention or intent of attention that maybe we're not getting from home or something, but we're always trying to control something. We're always trying to dominate something. If you look back and you look at, for instance, let's take a look at the pyramids, for instance. The pyramids at one time had this white coating on them that literally glistened in the sun, glistened. So it had the rocks that you see today, but it had this coat on it, this clear coat that as soon as the sun hit it, you could see that thing from all over the place, right? The pyramids. If you look at down the street a little ways in Mecca, there's that Muslim thing that they have that the Muslims walk around, whatever in Mecca, right? So a lot of them took that and they were making stuff over in those areas or whatever, using stuff that they got out of Egypt. Now, you know that a lot of this stuff happens, especially when you look at the people that are destroying these ancient monuments. You know they didn't have anything to do with building them. Right. That's the reason why it's so easy for them to destroy them, because they didn't do it. You see what I'm saying? If you were to go to the Sistine Chapel and you were to take a rocket launcher and blow that thing to pieces, you're going to have a bunch of people in there pissed off about that.
Yeah.
Right? You'd have people upset about that.
You're going to jail.
Why would you come in here and destroy this? Right. You could do that. They could go in and build mosques and this and the other off of stolen property and destroy stuff that they have nothing to do with. Right? Because they don't give a shit. They didn't build it. Who cares? Right? So I guess for myself, what I'm saying is that I think that we start to understand one of the things that again, I'm sorry, that my buddy Matt and I were talking about, and Matt is a philosopher like myself, is that we consistently destroy shit just to be doing it. Right? We are in war with people just to do it. Those people ain't got nothing to do with us.
Right.
Nothing. I still don't understand exactly what we're in war for now, as opposed to somebody else wanted you to be in there, wanted you to do this, right? And a lot of it, if you go all the way back, a lot of this is based off of a book and a belief that is where the new heaven or whatever is going to be, the new war or the final war is going to take place. Here's my thing. If God wanted something like that to happen, God would make that happen. But God ain't got shit to do with this. Nothing. This is people playing around with the mythology. Right? And which is crazy because most America has actually been anti-Jewish for fucking ever. So, but all of a sudden, when it comes to Israel and doing this and the other, now it's we need to stand up for the. You don't give a fuck about them here. You didn't give a shit about them during World War II either. I mean, so again, we're fighting on some shit that ain't got nothing to do with us. Or whatever. And again, I will be that individual who says it. We got problems right here that we could be fixing right here. The money that we send to other countries, and it's so funny to me how they'll be like, yeah, well, we ain't got the money for that. But I just saw you spend however many trillions of dollars over there, which ain't got nothing to do with us. The military industrial complex wastes more money. Look that shit up. They waste more money than it would take for us to just go ahead and fix healthcare here,
Mhm.
education here. People have been asking for marijuana to be legal for what, 20, 30 years? And yet instead it's like, well, we can't do that. We can't do that. But then the state itself says, you know what, we're done listening to you. And then the states start opening it up. And how many states do we have now? Like 20?
Yeah, something like that.
Could you look that up, please?
Yeah.
How many states do we have right now that have legalized marijuana? And every year, another state is legalizing it. Nebraska technically legalized it, but then who's your boy Pellin, or who was
Pillin.
it that stopped it?
And so that's what I was going to get to that. I can expand on that
Right.
one.
I
So
mean, but that's
it's
not the
24.
only 24. So that means that we have what? We got 26 more to go
well, it's 24, and then 38 have legalized it for medical
for
use.
medicinal.
Yeah. So 24 have
Okay.
legalized recreational, 38 have done it for
38.
38 have done it for medical.
Okay, so then we need 12 more. And then we're good. Then what? And then what?
Nothing.
Again, so the problem is, again, like I just said, it has nothing to do with our government. It's us. And once we decide what we're going to do, then we move forward in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and then if you think about the United States, we ain't united in shit.
So
The only thing that unites us is a border. That's it. Nothing else in the United States. We are not united in nothing. Nothing.
here's the thing. So one thing that was going around, and this is what I was talking to people about the dangers of Christian nationalism and white nationalism, right? One of the things that people in the military are reporting is some of their, like, coming down from up high, they're basically being told that this is a holy war that they're going into, and this is going to bring back the return of Jesus and all the other stuff. This is coming down from people up high, the people that are making the decisions about what's going to happen,
who don't believe in God, do not.
The head of what they call it, the Department of War now, Pete Hegseth, he's tied to a white fundamentalist Christian nationalist church. And so he says stuff that his pastor believes. His pastor had been talking about miscegenation laws and all this other stuff. And so now all of a sudden we're starting to see a lot of this stuff seep over into the military. Where it's not like it wasn't present in some degrees before, but now this is the vein that he tapped into. And so coming down from him, he's basically telling his guys, this is a holy war that you guys are going into. You're going for a righteous cause. And yeah, and this is going to bring about the revelation, all this other stuff. Is crazy. The fact that and when you're talking about like local politics specifically, the power that moves everything is still Ricketts. Pete Ricketts moves everything. He has the money. Candidates that he wants, he puts money in their pockets. Candidates he doesn't want, he has the ability to run campaigns against them. And nobody knows where the money's coming from, but everybody knows where the money's coming from. You know what I'm saying? It's that mafia, the Nebraska mafia. It's Tom Osborne, Pete Ricketts. You know what I'm saying? The guys that have the money in this town. And he is the reason why a lot of the marijuana legalization efforts have hit so many snags, where the legislature literally overrode the will of the electorate and said, nah, we ain't gonna do that. Because people voted for it, and the legislature said, nah. And a lot of that comes from Pete Ricketts saying, if you don't say no to it, you're not going to get any more money from us. That's the game, bro.
Right.
The one, here's the thing. The true ruler of this country, the thing that determines what gets made into law and what does not, is money. Money. who has the money. Look at like look how much they were publicizing that dude who they say shot that CEO, right? They made a big huge demonstration of it. They did this big huge perp walk where they're all standing around walking them to the car, all this stuff so the cameras can see it and everything. They're making a big huge publication about how they're pursuing the death penalty and blah blah blah. They're making such a big deal out of it because it's about sending a message to other people.
If you do something like this, this is what we're going to do to you too.
We're going to drop the entire weight of the legal system on you. It's not saying that it's okay that he went on shot dude. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they're making an example out of
an example out of him,
so that you could show all the other poor people, all the regular people, that we don't tolerate this kind of behavior from y'all.
Right, but until it keeps happening, it keeps happening, keeps happening. And then they'll start to understand that they're not scared of us anymore. So then you'll have another 9/11 type thing or whatever. And then, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you like. All I'm just going to say is I believe that's when you'll see the first alien spaceship come over type shit or whatever. Something that is so unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? Like something that's like, oh my God, it's here. And then all of a sudden now we unite together.
Well, there was a CEO.
You know what I'm saying?
There was another CEO though.
President Reagan talked about that in like the 80s.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not, for those of you guys watching this, I know that y'all think I'm probably just joking. President Reagan, who was one of the worst presidents to me, but he was talking about that during one of his speeches. Just saying. So go ahead.
So another but there was another CEO. This was in 2019.
Okay.
There's another CEO got killed by his employees. He's murdered by
I did not know that.
Former employees. Is Tushar Atir. He is murdered by 4 men, including 2 former employees who claimed he treated them cruelly and humiliatingly, forcing them to do push-ups for their paychecks. And fostering a toxic work environment. Like he was screaming on them. He'd be yelling at them.
Oh wow.
Let's
Made
see.
them do push-ups for their paychecks.
Yeah, like you had to do
That's
500 push-ups.
crazy.
You had to do 500 push-ups before he paid you or whatever. And
ain't nobody doing all that.
And they ended up taking him out of here. And eventually people will not tolerate mistreatment. But here's the thing, and I think this is the power game that's happening, right? For a lot of people, they aren't really aware of where the mistreatment is coming from. And so they ascribe it to people that really don't have any control over who's actually doing the harm to them. And so they have scapegoats, and as long as the people in power can say, yeah, it's not us, yeah, life is tough. Inflation is high artificially. Gas prices are going through the roof because we blew up some stuff overseas, and we destabilized the entire region where we get most of our oil from, or we get a good chunk of our oil from, and a lot of our natural gas from. We destabilize that, but it's not us that you need to be worried about. It's those immigrants over there.
Yeah.
And some people are so like they're already aligned to dislike that person over there. And I've seen it. Remember we talked about it a couple weeks ago where that dude was sitting there raging against immigrants in his neighborhood because how'd y'all get a navigator? Why y'all get a navigator? I don't have a navigator. Like old player hater stuff, right? And it comes from that, where instead of being mad at the system that is actually stepping on your neck and forcing you into these bad jobs with low pay, low wages, and no mandated health insurance or anything, you outsource that hatred to somebody else. It's their fault. It's those people over there's fault. They have something nicer than I do. It couldn't be the fact that maybe they invested their money differently. Maybe, they saved and I was not able to see the sacrifices they made on their end. It's got to be they're taking something directly from me.
Right. I mean, Yeah.
And they're not
Sergeant
mad at
one.
the they're not mad at the people up there that made this system the way it is. The system can say, nope, it's them. And we got enough people in this country that will do it every single time. They'll take their eye off the ball and be mad at the people that have the least amount of least power to influence anything. They're just trying to survive like everybody else.
Yeah, I remember watching that movie Rosewood, and it's when they went into a homeboy in them house, and they were like, "Dude, how does he have a piano?" And the white dude was like, "How does he have a piano in here?" And the other guy was like, "You don't even play a piano." He's like, "I know, but why does he have one?" It's kind of like that, like when you see something that although I don't have that, but I probably can't afford that. But how is it that you have one? So you shouldn't be able to afford what I should be able to afford too.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But again, though, I mean, I think that's just nothing more than a side of classism in general, and as well as a cultural norm. I was looking at the Afro Man trial.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he was saying in his box set that got worldwide attention was that he said they kick my door down, they break open my gate, they flip me off on my cameras, they take out cutters to cut my camera feed, and yet instead they're the victim. They did all this shit to me. He said, I didn't go to their house to do all this to them. They came to my house. And they knew that this was BS. They knew that it was. And they came to my house anyway, put guns on my family, to flip off my camera, tried to do all kind of weird stuff, and yet said they're the victim.
It was retribution. And then they're mad that they got caught.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, no. But see, that's just it, though. If there were no cameras, if it was just a person and their word, dude, they'd have railroaded this dude.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody would have believed him that this is what they did. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about what did you call this show today?
Hard power versus soft power.
Hard power versus soft power.
Yeah.
So again, they thought that, this is just another rapper that we're just going to basically make an example out of, not understanding that, dude, this guy tours all the time, and you are basically playing with the wrong dude. And one of the things that Poetic Flocko was saying, and I don't really agree with a lot of podcasters in general, but something that he said really got my attention. He said, if Afro Man thinks that this is a win, it's not. He said they're not going to stop messing with him now.
Yeah.
Because he embarrassed him. He embarrassed their whole entire county in front of the world. Everything you do now is going to be up under scope. Everything. Yeah. They're going to go after you with everything they got now. See, at first it was just local. But because you embarrassed them worldwide, bro, if you sneeze wrong, they emptying out their mag on you.
Yeah.
If you sneeze wrong, it's over. Poetic Flocko said, and I quote, "You better leave.
Yep.
Pack your stuff up and go somewhere else. Like, you need to leave because they're about to make an example out of him.
Remove the target." And
like,
that's
you got to. Like, you have to. I mean, matter of fact, and if you think I'm joking, look at O.J. Simpson. Remember what happened with him? He got off from that double murder, right? And then what happened? All them years later, he's at a hotel room getting his stuff back or whatever. And the other guys who had guns and all kind of stuff were let go because they just wanted OJ. OJ served what? 10 years? for something that would have just been a smack on the wrist. You know what I'm saying? Didn't the judge or something like that say something along the lines of "got him now"? Or
it was crazy.
something variant to that. But they're not playing with us.
And OJ was a fool because he thought that it could be sweet again, like it could go back to where the world just kind of loved him and stuff like that. It's like, man, you should have kept that profile low, man. Like I'd have been up out of this country. I've been living somewhere else.
Well, what did homeboy do? Russell Simmons. As soon as they start talking about him, he left.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not staying there. Y'all can, and think about it. That since he's been gone, there's so much stuff that comes out about this dude. Whether it's real or not is irrelevant. He left. Yeah. He was like, he took him and his money and he tipped on out.
And if 10% of what they say about him is true, that man needs to be in jail. But he ain't sticking around for this. Afro Man, like it's gonna be full on reprisals. They're gonna be looking for a way to redeem themselves at his expense. And that's how soft power functions, right? I mean, that's how hard power functions. Hard power wants to manufacture consent. It wants to make it seem like you were cool with it, or they worked within the rules and you were the rule violator. And that's why they had to drop the hammer down on you.
How much should have been next time they're gonna find some CP and pictures and in his car or something like that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Some real weird shit.
And so one of the things because I was talking about the immigrant thing and I wanted to bring it up to you, and it was just I had to go find it now, but it was talking about how black people used to save money outside of banks and stuff like that. And
yeah, because they wouldn't mess with us.
Yep, the entire concept of susu, what they call, now susu from other countries or whatnot, but we had our own form of susu and stuff. And how much that destabilized and upset the banking system because they didn't have hard power to wield over us by way of repossessions and evictions and stuff like that, because the lending was informal. You know what I'm saying? You had your own source of money. If you couldn't pay for it, you put it on layaway or you saved for it until you could pay for it. You did without it. And the banks almost had to the entire system had to work against black employment and make a lot of people who had industrial jobs and stuff, those jobs went away. And so their ability to save went away. And so they had to start financing stuff through the banks, and the banks are all in their face like, hey, we can get you a car at a great rate and you only have to pay X, Y, and Z. And these people didn't have the cash reserves that they had. Black folks didn't have the cash reserves they used to have, after a couple economic downturns. And so now they got to do the bank thing. But for a long time, we were excluded from the banks. And that was actually a power. That was actually economic superpower for us. I remember I forgot what book I was reading, or was I talking to somebody? They were talking about, during the Depression, man, like there are people that were mad at black folks during the Depression because they're like, why? Where are they getting this money from? Well, black folks weren't allowed to bank. So they couldn't put their money in the bank. So the bank couldn't steal their money.
Yep.
And so, but they had to, basically, the system had to tilt to dump a bunch of people onto unemployment so that they didn't have any other choice but to go through traditional banks to finance homes and cars and stuff like that. And I go back to that person that was mad at the immigrants, right? Because they're mad specifically a Haitian, I think it was a Haitian immigrant, or they might have been Caribbean, some other Caribbean. How'd they get a navigator and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I mean, susu is a thing that exists. And it's informal lending. They loan, one person gets the susu and they're obligated to pay it back, but they use that susu to put down payment on a car or house or business.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they have to pay it back. And that's how they're able to attain these things. And since everybody always puts back money into the pool grows continually, and they're able to get more and more by circulating the money around. Well,
right.
That's how they did it. And you try to explain that to somebody who is super Americanized or is in lock with that hardline that racism that comes from how did they get that and they shouldn't have that because I can't afford it kind of thinking, and their minds can't wrap around it. Then they get mad like you lying or something. It's like that's how they got that money. That's where the money came from. So I don't know where I was going with that, but the banking system is another financial system is another hard power entity that we don't talk enough about in this country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've read several books on that. Yeah.
So let me see where we are on this outline because I think we did. We talked about wealth.
Hey, Chimps, where's your outline at?
It's in the notes.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, nice.
So so the part I was on is wealth and power are not the same thing. You know, wealth does create the opportunity, but it doesn't always create control. And the example I used earlier was look at what happened with Kanye. Kanye, I remember Cass sitting there talking about, you know, big boss and all this other stuff, and he's running his own thing. And my contention was he's a very, very highly paid influencer.
Yes.
Highly compensated influencer.
Yeah. And you know that because once that Adidas deal went away, that $1 billion went away right along with it.
Right.
So,
and he's still rich. He's still rich,
yeah, for sure.
But he ain't a billionaire no more. And Adidas pulled the plug on that. And I had a lot of people like, oh man, it's gonna hurt him. He gonna do it. He gonna get back up. No, he's an influencer. He got his stuff through influencing deals. And he flew too close to the sun because all he had to do was sit back and collect his money and know the position he was in, and then use that money to build his own infrastructure. And then you could step away from it.
And not only that, though, but man, you guys also have to remember that Adidas is a German company.
Yeah.
With German ties.
Well, it's also
I'm just gonna say that. Well, and they weren't on the American side either. That's all I'm gonna say. Because remember, it's brothers. It was brothers. Or whatever. So Puma and Adidas. Yeah, come in.
And here's the thing though. This is
for yourself.
This is the nuance I tried to tell somebody. I said, you need to understand that what Kanye is saying is actually illegal in Germany. There's illegal in Germany because that was part of the negotiation after the war of putting these laws, these hardline laws against anti-Semitism and stuff. And all the Nazi imagery and stuff. That is illegal to do in Germany. You will go to jail.
The only places that is not illegal at is in the museum, number one, and the graveyards.
Yeah.
Those are the only two places where you will see a swastika in Germany outside of somebody's house. Wherever you do in your house is what you do in your house. But outside of your house, you will see it at a museum and graveyards because they did not think that it was a good idea to desecrate the dead. However that happened is how that happened, and that is what that is.
That's why Peter Thiel's grandfather moved them out of Germany to go to South Africa because Nazism is illegal there. And Kanye made a strategic blunder with this stuff. And I'm not putting it because I still do believe that there was a level of, you know, his mental health that played into this. This man was in a prolonged manic episode in a manic state and he's unmedicated. He said a bunch of stuff that was really, really stupid, but there are bipolar people every day that don't go on Nazi loving sprees. So, but Kanye was wilding, and I was telling people like, yo, it's illegal for this. So not only is it bad PR for Adidas, but they can face legal repercussions in the country that they're based out of.
Yeah.
And so they said no and dropped him, and that billionaire status went to nothing. And it didn't go to nothing. Bro's still rich, but it went down to millionaire. And so there's a difference between having wealth and having power. Now, a lot of very powerful people are also really wealthy. But there's also a lot of people who are wealthy that don't necessarily have power because somebody else is determining the means by which their wealth is created. That makes sense. So, you know, that's the game. There's a difference between earning money and owning stuff and controlling systems. And Kanye didn't control any of the systems that was paying his pockets.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I want so number 6 is hey, let's hit number 8 though. I like this one. Why
Okay.
real power stays quiet. Real power does not need it to attract attention. It operates through systems, not performance. And I want to talk about that because
Hmm.
one like I think that you've been around me when people have talked to me about it.
Hmm.
Brian, maybe you haven't. But people will be like, dude, why don't you ever tell anybody about some of the stuff that you do? Pertaining to myself. And I always say that success doesn't come with the audience.
Hmm.
You know, it usually doesn't come with one. Most of the stuff that I've accomplished, nobody was really around me, right? And I don't feel that it's always a good idea to showcase the shit that I've gone through, the things that I've done, or whatever. Like just like when I went and bought a particular car, I had to fly to a particular place to go get this car.
Hmm.
And here's the thing, funny enough, the only way that you would have known I was even out of town is because I was reading a book in the hotel room and I just so happened to finish it
Hmm.
while I was there. But I didn't tell anybody what I was going to go get. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing because I didn't think it was anybody else's business. And not only that, there were people that were losing their houses, losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods. And I'm out buying a $70,000 car. And why am I going to brag about that shit?
Hmm.
I'm not bragging about that. That's nothing to brag about. You know what I'm saying? Because 3 years later, that same car is worth half the price. So who got fucked? Why would I put that out there for people to go, oh man, look at what I just did? No, I'm good on that. And I'm happy that I didn't tell anybody that. Because I'd have been sitting there looking stupid. But when success comes, and I was talking to Jessica about this too. That's what we were
Hmm.
talking about. She was saying that, dude, there's millionaires and billionaires probably that we don't even know their names. We have no idea who these people even are. And this is what she was talking about. How real power, you don't know who these certain people are.
Hmm.
I remember reading a book by T. Harv Eker, and I forgot what it was called. I think he had a couple books, but anyway, there's one particular book or whatever, and he was talking about. Matter of fact, no, it was either him or the book I read called "The Millionaire Next Door."
Yep.
And the Millionaire Next Door was talking about how these multimillionaires will be driving buckets, buckets, old Lincoln Continentals, old pickup trucks, shit like that. Like these people are multimillionaires and you wouldn't even know it
Yeah.
because most of the people that you think the illusion you have are million millionaires have these 70, 80, $90,000 cars and and these people are not millionaires like that.
Right.
They're illusionists. Because the really rich people, they ain't got no cars like that.
Hell
Like
no.
the car that I have, like I love my car. Like first and foremost, it's my number one dream car. So it's a car that I actually wanted. Um, once I'm done with this car, I'm gonna go get another one. Like that's how much I love my vehicle, right?
Hmm.
So it's not like I'm gonna get the next best thing and I'm gonna go from here to over there. I don't need to do that. I found the car that I like, so I'm gonna kind of ride with. I'm gonna ride this one out, right?
Right.
Regardless of how other people may feel about it. But again, most people, when we look at that illusion, when we think about that power, we consistently keep thinking that the people with the power are the people with the money and you can see it on them. But
Mm-mm.
most of the time you don't. Buffett has been living in the same exact house since I was a kid. I don't know when he bought that house, but I'm pretty sure it was in the 70s.
Hmm.
I was born in 78. If I'm not mistaken, he had that house before I was born.
Yep.
So, but everybody in Omaha know that's what it is. Now, his company may own a bunch of houses, right? But he owns that house.
Yep.
That one house. Now, again, his company may own damn near everything else around here, but he himself owns that house, and everybody in Omaha know where Warren Buffett live.
He bought it in 1958 for $31,000.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah, and
you know what I'm saying, like that's my point. So again, and I don't know how many people be driving around Warren Buffett's house, but I know that when we drove past there, just going somewhere else, there's not a lot of people that be going over by that man's house.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody around, at least around here, we don't care.
Mm-mm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's sadly enough, it's almost like the Warren Buffett's house to Omahans is like the Henry Dorley Zoo to Omahans.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, I mean, it's just something that most of us who've been here most of our lives have been there so many times. Like, we're cool. So there's some people who just love being there. And if you live in South Omaha, good luck to you. Because that shit's going to be crazy packed over there. But for everybody else in Omaha, we don't really care.
Well, I remember I had somebody asking me, "Oh, so when Berkshire comes in town, what do you do?" Like, I don't. Well, you're a shareholder.
They go downtown.
You're a shareholder, aren't you? Yeah. Well, what do you? Are you? I'm not all up under them like that. I'm not all up under them people like that. Like, I live here. I see all these places. Like, this ain't new. Like, this ain't new territory to me. I've been here before, but for a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping their mind around it. Like, you were a shareholder and you didn't go to Berkshire. No, why? Why would I? I've been to all these places. You ain't got to take me to Dairy Queen with Warren Buffett. I can go Dairy Queen by myself.
Yeah, it's right down the street.
I don't need to be with Warren Buffett to go to Gorat's. I can go to Gorat's by myself. And so, but people were tripping off that, like, how did you have Berkshire stock and blah blah blah, and you weren't that, like, that just like New Yorkers, like, right? New Yorkers don't be going no Statue of Liberty, bro. They don't care about that.
Nah,
they don't. That's tourists. Every time you go there, it's tourists. It might be tourists and maybe children, like school children in New York City, going to see this stuff. For them, this is just normal everyday life. Like, how do y'all not go to the zoo all the time? I like the zoo, but I don't. It's here.
It's not that serious. And I mean, you better eat before you go. Yeah. I'll tell you that.
We had I went to King Science Center, right? We had a planetarium in our school.
I loved it.
And other kids would take field trips to go.
Yep, we would come to your school. Yes.
And it was a big, huge deal. And
yes, it was.
I'm sitting there talking to my friends, like, man, we gotta be in the planetarium this week, bro. Our science class in the planet. Oh, your science class in the planetarium? No, you don't understand, bro. Like, all we do is sit there and watch. Like, we watched 2001 on the big screen in the planetarium. That was our class assignment. And then we have to memorize the constellations, bro. Like, we don't get the show that y'all get. This is actually learning. Like, this is part of our class. We're actually learning stuff from this. This sucks. This is not.
I got you.
And so, and sometimes I have to, even like when my kids were, when it was a big deal for them to go to the planetarium, I had to make sure I didn't affect them with my apathy, because I spent like 3 years at King Science Center from 5th to 8th grade, going to their, like, it was part of our science class. Like, this week is planetarium week. Oh, God,
right.
Right. But you talk to my boy Macmillan, he's like, yo, planetarium was fun and everything. Like, damn, I wish they would do that for us.
Yeah, I went there. I'm a Central Park Westbrook dude.
Yeah.
Like, I went to Central Park, and we went from Central Park Westbrook over to King Science Center to go see all stuff. And I remember that because like I was messing with some little chick in there, man. So yeah, it was great. Even the what was it? The SAC was it SAC?
SAC, yeah, the SAC Museum.
And SAC Museum Air Force. Yeah, we will go there and stuff. So man, we had a lot of fun, man. That was, but yeah, I do remember King Science Center, man. Like you guys' thing was amazing. And
Yeah.
who would have thought that I'd have grown up and absolutely love astronomy, man? Like love it.
I mean, it was,
You
and
know, like
I was a
love
space
it.
nerd. My mom sent me to that. It wasn't called Space Camp, but it was Space Camp down in Hutchinson, Kansas, and stuff. Like I had pictures of myself in the astronaut suit. I was the mission commander for the simulated mission and everything that we went on and stuff because I was the only one who had aeronautics in school, and
Mm.
like I would do all this stuff. And for me, it wasn't a big deal, but for other people, like you had aeronautics and yeah, that's. I went to a science magnet, man. We did all this stuff. Like we were dissecting frogs in 5th grade and stuff. And you talk to people like, oh, that's amazing. And it's like, yeah, it's just a thing that happened. And that's how we view like the zoo here. Like it exists. Cool. It's dope.
hmm
I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
It's expensive as hell.
It's very expensive, yes.
And so anyway,
Just
but
like
yeah,
if you were just like if you were to go to the Statue of Liberty, anything you buy in there is gonna cost you
yeah.
a whole lot more. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because we're not paying for all that. We're not doing all that.
My biggest memory of going up the Statue of Liberty, going up in the Statue of Liberty, was my older cousin having a panic attack because she realized she was claustrophobic in that moment at the top of the
Yeah,
Statue of Liberty, and it was
that
like
makes sense.
she had to freak out up
That makes
there,
sense.
and we had to get back down. But it was like it was a bunch of people standing on a spiral staircase, and you go through and look out the windows and look out into the harbor, and then go back down. And it's like, and New Yorkers are like,
Yeah.
I don't care about that shit. Anyway,
And you
so,
you know what's really funny. A quick did you know or whatever. The Statue of Liberty is actually in New Jersey.
mhm.
It is not in New York. They claim it, they clean it, but it is not in New York. It's actually in New Jersey.
Yeah, we were
So
out there.
Liberty Island is not in. I now I'm not sure. Maybe Liberty Island itself, but the Statue of Liberty is technically not in New York. It is actually in New Jersey. Just throwing it out there. Boom.
So let me look at this. Okay, so the real power stays quiet. Let's spin a little. A lot of times the power that you'd see is built-in structures, right? Regulatory frameworks. History is really tied to whoever is in power. History is
Of
written.
course.
History is
Yes,
written and
it's written.
narrated by the power, the winning
by,
side.
by the power, yes. So that and think about it. And I really want people to understand this because when we're reading stuff and like I was watching oh my god, I forgot the guy's name. I'm not really all that good with names sometimes, but the guy was talking about Native Americans and how when the pilgrims and whoever that he was talking about came here or whatever, he seen a bunch of people. He said that there was a bunch of these individuals come here and they see all of these half naked people running around, killing off each other, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this is just crazy. And then they start writing and start trying to make things a little bit more habitable for the people that are arriving, this, that, and the other, whatever. And it's so funny because that's one part of a story,
Right.
right? But I guarantee you, if you ask the people that were here about what you're saying, that they probably feel it a little differently because they're the people that arrived were eating their own people because they could not survive here. So the first stages of cannibalism came out of the individuals that were coming over here because they didn't know how to feed themselves. They didn't know how to do any of this stuff because they were new here, which happens. So again, but you're still going to have people that are around that would help you out. So the things that we call individual savages and this, that, and the other, you really can say that. I mean, because people, that's how people were doing a lot of different things,
Right.
right? So if you were to go into Africa, it would be the same exact thing. Nobody has clothes on here. It's 115 degrees outside. Why would you walk around with clothes on?
Right.
Like,
There's a-
why would you walk around like that? That's crazy. You gonna have to take this stuff off. You know what I'm saying? Like we're good here. And again, we have loincloths, we have other stuff that if it's cold, we know how to wrap up and we know how to keep warm. This and
Right.
the other. But when you're talking about um like there's another narrative in America that, well, Africans were selling each other off to, you know, each other. Yeah, but again, you have to remember Africa is not a country. It is
Right.
a continent.
It's continent.
It's a whole entire continent, which you're talking about 54 other countries. America is a country. It's one country. You can fit America, the whole entire, what is it? It's a North and South America
It's North and South America, I think.
inside of Africa. What is it? 3 times?
Right.
Whatever. So, but our point is this: you have one country in America. Africa has 54 Americas in it. So when you say that, well, you guys were selling each other off to each other, that's almost like saying that all blacks are Bloods and Crips.
Right.
Like there are Bloods and Crips that are predominantly black, but not all black people are Bloods and Crips. That's almost like saying that all white people are part of the Aryan Brotherhood.
Yeah, it's not true.
All white, all members of Aryan Brotherhood are white, but not all white people are Aryan Brotherhood.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So you can't just singly splash the whole entire black diaspora, like everybody who's black, and say, well, you guys sold each other off. No, it's not you guys. That's almost like me saying that during the 50s, during the 40s, you guys are putting your own people in ovens and killing them.
Well,
that has nothing to do with one thing. Or that's like almost like me saying, hold on one sec.
Okay.
That's almost like me saying that you guys murder people out in the streets like dogs or whatever. You guys speak Spanish, you do this, you do that, you kill innocent people, blah blah blah. You would be like, who are you talking about? And then I was like, well, the Mexicans. Well, yeah, they're not Americans. Yes, they are. They're in America just like you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you got to be very careful on how we narrate stuff, because somebody else could say the same shit about us, and then there's nothing that we can say about that.
Yep.
Like in general. Go ahead.
So, in all generalizations are false. I want to acknowledge
Correct.
Bird Baines. We're talking about hard and soft power today, and how they cover each other and how they exist in our world and the difference between the two things. Well, and there's other narratives that we get. Like we get weird narratives like, well, black people were slave owners, right? We get that, right? They're the first slave owners were black people and all this other stuff. And then when we present the narrative, when the power part presents the narrative, it's stripped of context, right? A lot of the black slave owners, and there's a number that weren't doing this, so I'm not going to say it's like general for everybody, but a lot of the documented black slave owners, the people they owned, they bought their family's freedom. And since there was no mechanism in some states for a black person to obtain freedom outside of the direct purchase of a slave, because they were considered a slave for life, right? So there are cases where, I forgot what the gentleman's name was, they purchased their family's freedom and they were listed as slaves to the person, the family member that purchased. I hate to say it, it grosses me out to even say they purchased another person, but they purchased their freedom. When that person died, they went back into slave. That family member might have gone back into slavery just because of how the laws were set up. but the narrative basically says, well, there are black slave owners too. Well, a lot of those people had been emancipated in some way, shape, or form, and they were buying the freedom of their loved ones.
And not only that though, but not all black people were slaves,
Right.
In general here or whatever, because you have to remember, again, going back to the narrative itself, the narrative is usually written by the victor, not the victim.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that there were Moors that were already here before white people showed up here. So there were already black people that were already here that lived along with the Indians when white people showed up here. That's the reason why, and I think it was in it wasn't in North Carolina, South Carolina, how they would have certain laws enacted that said that they didn't care if you were Moorish or whatever different tribes you were from in general, you could not put your hand on a white person regardless of what they did to you. Now, again, they also threw in slave as well, but they had to say other people. So if you weren't white, you can't put your hands on a white person, period, regardless of what they do to you. Now, again, a victim didn't write that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? The narrative went to the victor. They wrote that. So again, I mean, and a lot of this stuff, like I was reading this book here, just finished it. It's called Shouting in the Fire, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Dante Stewart. And it was all right. I gave it a 3.7, 3.9, somewhere around there, whatever. But that's one of the things that he was talking about too, is that they would certain people will sit around saying that there are people that are Christians that what was he saying? My brain on one blank. What was I talking about? What's it saying?
I forgot what the guy's name was about Christianity. I was looking him up, and then you asked. No, I can't.
Yeah. So anyway, in this book, he was talking about how certain people were doing certain things based in the name of Christianity in general, right? So they basically would take certain stories and then they would weaponize Christianity against other people. And my point was is that if slavery was acceptable in the Bible, if you just had to accept your fate in life, then there would have been no such thing as two different Bibles. It wouldn't have been a slave Bible and a regular Bible, because if they would have given you the regular Bible and like, hey, it's right here.
Right.
They wouldn't have need to take it out, remove, or alter anything else in that book. They'd been able to give it to you at just off top. But they didn't do that because they understood that it was wrong. You see what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
They knew it was wrong, because otherwise you wouldn't have altered the book. And I have it right up above my stuff, whatever. I have the slave Bible, or the Negro Bible is what it's more colloquially used or called, or whatever. But again, man, I think there's like 200. How many books are in?
How many books are in the Bible?
I think it's 66 books, right?
I'll look it up.
I think there's 66 books.
Which Bible are we talking about?
I mean, you can use King James.
There's 66. There's 66 in the Protestant.
66, right? And so there's 66 books in the Bible. They took out so many, it was absolutely crazy. So it would go from like Genesis to like, I'd have to grab it. I don't feel like it though. But like they took out so much of it, it was crazy. Like the whole book of Exodus, gone. No, you don't hear now. You don't see nothing about that. Nothing about it. There's a bunch of them. Psalms. I think the Psalm may have been in there. There's a few other ones that, I mean, just gone. Just gone. whatever, because they intentionally wanted to keep them in a particular mental state in general.
Right.
And you only do that when you know that there could be some type of liberation, there could be some type of revolution, there could be some type of something. So you want to do what? You want to quash that
Mhm.
before it even starts. So don't sit there and act like Jesus is the way and this, that, and the other. If you didn't even give him all the book, if you're and that's kind of what I'm talking about before, the narrative, the victor writing the narrative. How is it that everybody else is bad except for the shit that you've done to people?
That's the question. That's the $1 million
How is
question.
it that everybody else is immoral, but you're the moral? You serve as a moral turpitude of all this. I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, and I also think about it like this too. If I were to go to a whole nother place, right, a place that has never seen me before, never heard of me, I go to your land.
Hmm.
Based on what I've learned here in the United States of America, what do you think I'm going to do to that other community?
You're going to destroy it.
What do you think I'm going to do to them? Matter of fact, let me reiterate my question. What have I learned here in America? What have I learned here that I'm going to do to them?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. It's not what am I going to do? It's what have I learned here that I'm going to take there.
It's about conquest. Like this, like and I tell
Isn't
people
that
like
sick?
America is one of the longest, like it's a colonial experiment. It's one of the longest running colonial experiments in the world. Like it's still running. Like we colonized all of this. You know what I'm saying? Half of this country is Mexico, essentially. We just said this ain't yours no more. It's ours now. And so that is the history of America. And then when you have people that are kind of hostage of the colonial part of America, like black people, you got Mexican folks whose country was just kind of, this is America now. Hi, this is you're now in America.
Kind of appended.
Yeah,
What is it? What
Native
is it
Americans.
called? No, what is that called? Because we did annexed.
Yeah,
we annexed your shit.
We just annexed you, and
annexed you.
Now that we've annexed you, either you can do things the way we tell you to do them, or you can die. Essentially, like you can't even leave. You can't even really leave. We just either you do it this way, or we're gonna drop the army on top of you.
Yeah, that part.
And so that's the dynamic that America lives in. And so it goes back to me arguing with people online and like about some stuff I had written, where they were talking about, black folks are complicit in American imperialism. And I was like, yeah, to the degree that hostages can be complicit to the will of the people that are holding them hostage. Like we can't, where else are we going to go?
Mm-hmm.
We don't really control anything within the government in and of ourselves. We're already a minority in the country, right? And we can enforce our political will to a limited degree, but even then, you still have people that are still, like, the people you're picking from are people that are still all subservient to maintaining America's power. So that's who you're picking between, right? You're never going to pick the colonial. You're never going to pick the anti. There's never going to be an anti-colonial or imperialist candidate that wins national office. Like that's not going to happen. And there's too many chips. There's too many people. Too many power systems rely upon our military, law enforcement ecosystem, legal ecosystem, corporate ecosystem to allow that to happen. But they're like, yeah, black people are complicit in it. Well, how? We don't control anything. Like well, there are black people in the military. Well, yeah, but they're also like,
soldiers.
There are Colombians in the cartel. Are we saying the Colombians are complicit in drug? We don't say that. right?
Right.
The reason
No,
why
I mean, yeah.
there's some
But
folks that were going to join the military. There's some black folks that their family's military, and that's what they're going to do, right?
yep.
There are also people in my family who joined because there was nothing else out there. And then there are also members of my family that didn't choose to join. There was a draft and they said, "You are now in the military." And they never got an option. And so we're moving towards now where it's framed as an economic ladder for a lot of people. And it has worked for a lot of families to extricate themselves from it. The difference was there was a time, and people don't understand this. There was a time, me and Fearless remember this. There was a time where we were about 25 years between wars, like actual wars, like Vietnam, and then there was a huge gap, and then we're in the Persian Gulf, but in the middle we had Grenada and all those other, skirmishes where we basically went and destabilized somebody else's country and took over their government. But
yeah, but there wasn't before like 9/11. I mean, yeah, we had that Kuwait type thing or whatever. Then after that, it wasn't nothing until that we're aware of.
Yeah.
Until 9/11 happened. And then from there, we basically been in a war since 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
So now we've been in a war for damn near 20-some years.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form. We've been And so the military went from an opportunity ladder to, actually now we're actually an arm of the colonialism and imperialism.
Yeah, correct.
And a lot of people didn't necessarily sign up for it because you're expecting a teenager coming out of high school to understand the complex geopolitical systems that they're signing on to when they're just trying to figure out, I don't have a job and I don't really want to go to college.
Yeah, and I don't think people really understand is if somebody decided or wanted to go to war with us, I don't think you understand what it is they may not necessarily go to war with you from a tactical standpoint, throwing bullets and bombs. Dude, listen to me. If I wanted to destroy America, you want to know how I would do it? Honestly, I'd do it financially.
Yeah.
I would basically turn you into your own fighting force to go against your own government. That's what I would do. Like, seriously, really, dead ass. That's what I would do. I would make it where you would fight against your own people. I wouldn't do anything to you. And the reason why is because look at it like this. If I attack you, and if I try to come in and I try to run stuff, you're not going to allow me to do that. Right. You'll probably kill yourself before you allow me to take over anything, right? But what I would do is I would make it so that you didn't have that your government, because they're not going to help you. I would make it where you can't eat, your water is destroyed, you can't educate yourselves, there is no more internet. So then most of you dumb motherfuckers gonna have to go back to reading. The problem is most of you don't even either know how to read or you read at a third grade level by that point. And you don't like to read in general. You like things told to you. But the problem is that the people talking to you are liars. So therefore, then what I would do is I'll pump your system full of trillions of dollars, basically making sure that your dollar is nothing. And then I'll starve you out and make you attack your own country. That's what I would do. And then here's the thing. I could do all that from thousands of miles away by a push of a button. I don't need to go to war with you. I don't need to send a drone at you. The only people who would do something like that is your own people. So I can see our government droning its own people. I can see that happening, which our government has done that before. It's called Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
So it has happened. Our government does. And think about the shit that they do to our food that we allow these people to do. So I'm just saying, dude, like, man.
Well,
okay.
Rod Serling peeped this a long time ago on the Twilight Zone. The monsters are due on Maple Street. Have you ever seen that episode? So basically, it plays upon everybody's a neighborhood experience is a blackout, right? and the neighbors start making up all these theories about why their power's cut off, and nobody else, the adjacent neighborhood's power isn't cut off, right? And somebody mentions aliens, and then all of a sudden, all the neighbors are like, "There's aliens. Who are the aliens among us?" And they start turning on each other, and it all culminates where they're all chasing this little boy because he played around with ham radio and that was his hobby, and they thought that he and his family were aliens because he was doing the ham radio stuff. And so they're trying to kill him. They're trying to barge in, and somebody who they sent over, a scout they sent over to the other neighborhood, basically was returning. He was walking through the fog. They thought he was an alien and shot and killed him. And then at the end of the episode, it zooms out to see these aliens standing on top of this cliff saying, "You see, all you got to do is turn the power off and they'll destroy themselves." And he's like, "And we can replicate it. We can do this all over the country. There are plenty of Maple Streets all over the world." That came out. Let me pull it up. That came out in 1960 is when that first aired.
Okay.
And for those that don't know, Rod Serling was kind of a progressive genius in terms of what he was talking about on the Twilight Zone. Because you're talking about 1950, 1960, he's doing episodes about anti-Black racism. He's doing episodes about the military-industrial complex. He was doing all these anti-war things because he is a veteran of World War II and became a pacifist after that. And he had very complex, nuanced episodes about different things that he saw as issues in society. At the time, it was a Red Scare, and that's what he was saying. The Red Scare was just a bunch of people creating their own monsters and making monsters out of their neighbors. So, if you ever get a chance, check that episode out. But he was talking about that in 1960. All you had to do is turn the power off.
Yeah,
turn the power off, and they'll devour themselves.
And funny enough, I'm gonna show you this book here. There's a whole entire excuse me. There's a whole entire thing on it. This book right here is called 1 Second After by William Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And there's I think there's like 4 or 5 now. But the first 3 was the first one was called The Second After. And then hold on, there's a whole. Okay, hold on. So this is the first one, and then 1 year after, and then the final day,
Mm-hmm.
and then this one here just came out 5 years later. I haven't read that one yet, but this this series is based on an EMP going over like 3 parts of the world for the most part, and one of them is in Kansas City, which shuts out all of the Midwest. And basically what they're talking about in this book is what happens when you have no more lights, you have no more this, you have no more that. And it was basically saying that we will go back a couple hundred years. And in the book, he was talking about, no, it will send us back 500 years because we have no idea how to drink, how to feed ourselves, how to stay warm. We don't know anything anymore because all that's been taken away from us. All of it. Think about it. And then even if you were to go fishing, you got to remember most people are probably going to go, I've already been there and take the fish.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're already going to go there and then they're going to have other people snipe you out before you come up. You see what I'm saying? So it's all these issues. And again, this is what happens when you create a culture of individualism as opposed to community.
Yeah.
This is what happens. This book right here, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it's a kind of a thick one. But like these books were absolutely amazing. Amazing. And then there was another one. Here, let me find this other book for you. It's called Dry by, hold on, let me see. Here it is. Neil and Jared Schusterman. He's Neil Schusterman is
I've heard that name.
He's a adult. No, not adult. He's a young adult author. His books are absolutely phenomenal. Any book he comes out with, I go and get it. It's like I go and buy it. I don't want it. I don't need to know what it is. I just go get it. This book is about what happens if the water gets shut off. What happens when you have no more water? So you still have electricity, you still have wind turbines, you still got this, you still got that. What happens when the water gets shut off? And the things that people were, oh my gosh. I mean, and the first one, the first book that I showed you, this one here, a second after, like I still don't think that there's another book to me that was just as, hold on, I'm gonna go back to it and show you guys. That was just as good as this one pertaining to like he was like, so when the power went off, there was this lady, a very attractive woman, and she was like, hey, can you give me a lift? I mean, this and the other. And she was still in a dress, high heels, this and the other, whatever. And again, all the power just went off, right? So he's like, I would love to, but I got to make it home, whatever. And later on, we see that same woman again later on, after they kind of create this whole commune thing. He sees her again, and she still kind of has on like a dress type thing, but tennis shoes instead of high heels. And the things that this woman is offering to do to him or for him, he said, man, I can only imagine the things that these men have done to her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even going to front, which I'm not even going to lie to you, bro. That is honestly the one thing that terrifies me more. And I have a son. I don't have no daughters, but I'm just saying off top, that is the one thing that seriously scares me about the future when it comes to women, is this whole thing of these motherfuckers objectifying y'all and y'all not understanding, like, dude, if the world turned to shit, do you understand what motherfuckers are gonna do to you? Especially they've been seeing you on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, doing all this shit, twerking and doing all this work. Man, do you know this book will tell you? That's all I'm saying. And when I read that, I was like, wow.
Well,
because a grown man like myself, I'm not even thinking about no shit like that in general. But again, the things I've gone to different stories and different people's posts and look at the comments to see what dudes are saying about them now.
Well, and that's the thing I was going to point out. A lot of things that we're talking about, it happens in real life. Like it doesn't even require that. There are women that are experiencing that level of maltreatment from these dudes. That's why I'm creeped. Like you were talking about with people in comments, I'm creeped out by some of these dudes and how they react to,
man.
They'll see like a toddler or something, a little girl on there.
Crazy shit.
They'll say some of the nastiest, most vulgar stuff on there, and it's like, these are the dudes. That's why I don't let people around. I'm very judicious about who's around my kids and stuff like that, because there are absolute weirdos out there who they go to their minds go to the darkest places immediately, and a lot of it has to do with something not functioning in their brain the right way, but then also this weird hyper individualistic, hyper online world that we've made, where a person just walls themselves off from every single form of human interaction, and then just jams all kinds of adult content and all kinds of other stuff into their head. That ends up becoming their baseline for what reality is. And then they walk around and people are icked out by him, and they wonder why people are repelled by him. It's like, because you are seeing life through a very distorted, a sexually distorted lens of how people actually interact with one another. And in that situation, it's the worst of the worst. I did all that. I left There's a reason why I couldn't get through a lot of the Epstein files and stuff when I started trying to do it for my other show, is because that was the world I left. I worked in abuse neglect, and you come home with nightmares from some of that stuff.
I bet, man.
And so I ended up having to leave it. There's one piece I wanted because it kind of ties in. I was looking for it. There was a specific segment from that episode of Twilight Zone. It was the closing narration. And this is normally stuff that Rod Serling wrote for, just kind of as his observation of the show and framing it. He said, the tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallouts. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, and prejudices to be found in the minds of men. For the record, prejudices can kill and suspicion can destroy. And a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own. For the children and the children of the yet unborn, for the children and the children of the yet unborn. And the pity is that all these things cannot be confined only to the Twilight Zone. And so he's talking about the power of how we perceive things, and basically how the people in charge are shaping our perceptions. All they have to do is exert direct influence over a thing that we need. I used to tell my staff, the way you brainwash somebody is you control their access to a restroom, control their access to food, and restrict them and confine them to a specific area. And that is an effective methodology of brainwashing people. I said, that's why I don't allow you guys for when a kid is acting up, I don't let you restrict food or restrict restroom access, because that leads to some very insidious things. And it may not even be your intention, but you're framing it and setting it in a way to do that. Right. That's how you control people. And so, but yeah, a lot of times power isn't obvious. And I think that's the thing that we as people need to understand. And I think that's the thing that we miss. Just because somebody is in your face all the time doesn't mean that they're powerful.
Right.
And a lot of times the person calling the shots is the person you've never met and you'll never see. I use Hollywood as a microcosm, bro. How many of the mega producers in Hollywood could you identify by their picture alone?
Okay, say that one more time.
Like the mega producers, the people whose job it is to gatekeep and produce what television and movie products we see on our screen. The people that are in charge of those decisions. How many of those people could you identify by just their picture?
None.
But how many celebrities can you identify by their picture?
I mean, I could probably identify more back in the day than I can now. Most of the people, I don't even know who they are now.
Yeah, and I'm saying the general you, like just us all as you. We can identify these celebrities because they're highly visible. But they're not necessarily always the ones in charge. Some of them have pivoted over into producer roles.
Yeah, correct.
But they're not even on that scale. Like I said, the process of getting a movie made, some of the biggest dogs in Hollywood still have to scrape and borrow and beg, borrow, and steal to get their vision on the screen. They have to find somebody who can finance it. Because they're not going to use their own money to finance it because it's a money pit. And so some of the biggest directors that when they have an idea for a movie, they got to go beg, borrow, and steal to get the producers to sign on to it. There are very few people that can say, this is what I want to create, and I'm going to create it, and I have the money to do it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, Tyler Perry is one of the few cats that has that level of independence. Up until recently, like I guess they kind of reduced his control over at BET or whatnot. Paramount did, but he was one of the few people that has his own studio. He can self-finance his own projects and create exactly the vision that he has in his head for something without using anybody outside of him. There are producers that have been working in Hollywood. Scorsese can't do that. Scorsese can't go and just say, this is what my vision is, and I'm just going to create it. He still has to go find somebody to finance it.
Right.
Who was the dude who did God dang it, The Shining? Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick famously could not afford, like he ended up almost into poverty because of it, because he had his visions of movies and he was trying to self-finance them. He almost drove himself to the poorhouse trying to do it. And so we imagine what power is without really appreciating what power actually is, because the power for these people sitting up in these offices is they ain't looking to be known. If I put a picture, like let's talk power, right? If I put a picture of Larry Ellison on the screen, would you even know? Well, most people don't even know who that is.
Larry Ellison. Who
Yeah.
was that? Talking about
He-
Google?
Oracle.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
Okay. Here's Larry
I
Ellison.
wouldn't.
Larry Ellison not only owns Oracle, which owns every single which is pretty much every single database that is used. So every piece of information that is stored.
I know
on
what
the computer.
Oracle is.
Yeah. But
But I
also
didn't know who Larry Ellison was.
his son is the head of owns Paramount Studios.
Hmm.
And he's in an ownership group of TikTok.
Okay.
So he has the infrastructure to have everybody's data. He has an aggregating mechanism, which is TikTok, to aggregate all these people's data.
Yeah.
His son owns entire television networks and news networks and all these others, and movies and television shows and all this other shit that people consume on a daily basis. We don't even know what these people look like. You couldn't pick them out of a lineup, and that's the way he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I don't blame. I wouldn't want people to know what I'm up to or who I am. For the consulting thing, that's one thing. But just on some other shit, nah. I'd rather you not know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm not really into the whole fame thing. Like, I don't really give a shit about all that.
I don't.
I never have. Like, let me get out. I'll get to the bag, but I want to get to the bag so I can leave a bunch of that mess for my kid to give him some type of fighting chance. But for the most part, man, I'm good on that.
Talib Kweli said, "Give me the fortune, keep the fame."
Yeah.
And so
I'll take that.
But Larry Ellison, I remember they're interviewing him. Bro was giddy about the fact this is him. This is Larry Ellison.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Bro was giddy about the fact that now he wants a world where everybody is under surveillance all the time. Because if everybody's under surveillance, everybody behaves. In his world, that's how he imagines.
Not necessarily, because
everybody
is under surveillance in Britain and the UK, and people still get stabbed to death.
I know. This is him sitting up on stage.
Some people just don't give a fuck. And you're going to meet those people.
And that's why he's like, and when the police are always under surveillance, they're going to behave. No, they're not. That's not how that works. No. And so, but in his world, when everybody is under surveillance and we're able to watch what everybody does, says, and acts, then we have a safer world. And that's the world he's trying to build. And it sounds crazy up until you realize that he has access to everybody's information that's ever been stored on the internet. Because because his company owns the patent to that technology of databases.
That's crazy.
So there it is. All right, y'all. We've scared you. We've scared you. Terrified you enough. Thanks for tuning in. I like these power discussions because we can riff on these. And there are parts of this outline we didn't even touch on. But
I know. That's I kind of went ahead and started seeing something like, oh, I want to touch this one.
Let's put a pin in this one and come back to it.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll holler at Fearless real quick, then I got to make a run across town to go finish this install. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to be trying to get this actually. I'm actually building out the platform this week. I'm going to be moving some of this and having this up on Spotify. Like, I got to figure. I think I figured out a way to get us up on Spotify with this podcast.
Alrighty.
And so be on the lookout for that. I'll drop the link when that's ready. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for tuning in. Trial and Error. It's been Brian.
Fearless here.
Talk to y'all later. Peace.